So, welcome everyone to day 3 of PAC Conference 2025, Sustaining Commitment to Activism and Liberation. This day is all about action. My name is Ashley Fathan. I'm so proud to introduce the second session of today, Education as Resistance, Community-Centered Education, Engaging Families and Communities in the Fight for Palestine, led by Amanda Najib. Amanda will focus on parents, caregivers, and community leaders who want to stay actively engaged with Palestine through education. Amanda Najib is a scholar, activist, and radical educator completing her PhD at NYU. Her teaching, research, and scholarship occur at the intersections of race, politics, and education, with a particular focus on decolonial frameworks and Palestinian feminism. She is currently examining the institutional and systemic discrimination Palestinians face in an effort to theorize a Palestinian critical race theory, one that centers decolonial praxis and moves beyond CRT's US-centric framework. Amanda has taught in public schools in New York City and Chicago, as well as in refugee camps in Palestine, Lebanon, and Turkey. She now teaches pre-service teachers at NYU and CUNY. She is also the winner of the 2024 Palestine Book Award. Alternatively, you can head downstairs for a session on decolonizing knowledge, education as a tool for liberation with Manad Hussein and National Students for Justice in Palestine, who will focus on a workshop that will empower participants to challenge the entrenched narratives that perpetuate Zionist settler colonialism from K-12 classrooms to university campuses.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everyone. First, I want to start with my deep gratitude for your presence here, for your commitment to the Palestinian people, and for your belief that education can be part of our resistance. Again, my name is Amanda. I'm a scholar, I'm a mother and an educator and an organizer. And everything I do is guided by the question of how do we teach our children and our communities to never forget Palestine, even with every attempt to erase us. This session is really rooted in the belief that our communities hold everything we need, and it's not just about learning facts. Our communities hold what our children need. Our memory, our resisting erasure, and raising generations who know who they are and where they come from. So I want to pause here for just a second to look at this Audre Lorde quote and see it as not just as a poetic statement, but really as a deeply poetic one. And if you can't see it, it says, when we speak, we are afraid of our words will not be heard or welcomed, but when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak. And I paused with this quote in the times that we're in, especially now, where our students are facing deportation, community leaders are getting arrested, community leaders are facing deportation, we're getting fired. And while it's not new, and it's been our history in Palestine, for Palestinians in this country, it is under, I would say, immense pressure. It's very critical right now. And it's critical that we don't cave. It's critical that we keep pushing along and not being afraid to keep speaking up. So we're living through an era where an entire people are being erased in real time, and we're watching this genocide live streamed every day of our lives. And it's not just the bombs and bulldozers doing that, it's truly our silence. It's curriculum guidelines in schools, it's school principals telling teachers they can't say the word Palestine in class. It's media asking for balanced perspectives while people are buried beneath the rubble and literally burned alive. And when I say education becomes survivable, I mean that literally. The stories we pass down to our children, the conversations we have in our homes, the books we read out loud, the truths we dare to speak out loud, all of that is our resistance. All of that is refusal to be erased. And this is especially important in the diaspora. It's especially important here in the imperial core in America that is funding and co-opting what is happening to our people. We're surrounded by institutions that gaslight us, that silence us, and that criminalize our grief and our truth. So when we teach and when we name the violence, when we share our people's history, we're not just educating, we're preserving life, we're preserving our dignity, and we're preserving our memory. That's what this session is all about, reclaiming the power of our community, reclaiming the power of community-based education, not just as supplemental to the classroom, but as a space of radical possibility, of healing and liberation for Palestine. So what is community-centered education? Can I take some hands? What do you think of when you hear community-centered education? Not all at once, I'll get overwhelmed. All right, I can answer it, so that's what I'm here for. When we say community-centered education, we're not just talking about alternative schooling or weekend classes. We're really talking about learning that emerges within and from our community, our families, the mosques, our kitchens, our living rooms, our friends. This education's rooted in everyday practices, where knowledge is passed down over meals, at bedtime, during car rides, through songs, through memory. It doesn't require formal credentials. It requires love, intention, and the belief that we are our children's first teachers. And it's not about replacing school. It's about recognizing what our children learn at home is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than what they learn in school. And before I share a little story of my own, I do want to hear from you guys. Think about your home or community growing up. What were the ways people taught you without a classroom? It could be anything. Your mother teaching you to cook. Your grandma teaching you how to be.
Just a quick car announcement, maybe one of many today. We have a black Jeep, license plate T45NKK. Again, it's a black Jeep. I think it's a Compass or something. Blocking someone in the driveway. Again, it's license plate T45NKK. Please move your car immediately. And you will have a parking space when you move your car, so.
I hope it's none of us.
I have an answer.
Please.
It's still within a university setting, but I learned more from our cultural centers where I was like a student staff than I ever did in our classes. Like a lot of my social justice and political education, even though I was like international relations and Middle East studies major, I learned from those centers, like the cultural centers on those campuses, and that's where like I got a lot of my professional development, my social justice work, so that like has kind of continued to be like what I do. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And you're learning from your colleagues, from friends. Did anyone's mom ever teach them to cook anything? Does anyone speak Arabic here? Yeah. You guys just knew that on your own? Or did your families teach it to you? Of course. PAC is a beautiful, literally the most beautiful, the thing I use all the time when I talk about community-centered education. Like, what a special place, what a rare place that you can learn so many things here, and that PAC like uplifts this community all the time, whether new authors come through or people want to give workshops. Without our community, our children don't have a sense of Palestine. Our homeland is fragmented. Our homeland is, in ways, for a lot of us, unreachable right now. So the diaspora is really where we can learn about who we are. So we're going to be real for a second, very honest. The U.S. education system doesn't just ignore Palestine. It doesn't just accidentally forget to include us. We're not just one of the many voices that they don't include. It's an active erasure. It punishes and distorts anything that disrupts their imperial narrative. So from kindergarten to college, students are taught that Israel has a right to exist, that Israel is in fact a democracy, and that this is a conflict, and that Palestinians are a problem rather than a people. And our stories are either disappeared in US schools or distorted. And this is not accidental. It is by design. It's by design of how US schools function. And why? Because this country and its institutions are not neutral. They function in alignment with US imperial interests, and Israel is a cornerstone of that alignment. And that's why our teachers get silenced. That's why students get surveilled. That's why saying from the river to the sea is treated like a threat instead of a dream for freedom for our people. So while we fight to transform schools, we also need to recognize that they are built on colonial, capitalist, and white supremacist foundations, which is why our community becomes the real classroom. Our stories, our history, our grief, our joy, they become our curriculum. And we don't need to wait for permission to teach the truth or to teach Palestine. So after everything we've seen with this accelerated genocide, the censorships, the silencing, the deportations, we cannot wait for school boards to grow a conscience. We can't keep hoping that one day someone will approve of a more balanced curriculum for us. We are living through a genocide, and the school systems are asking us for silence by claiming safety for their other students, by claiming neutrality for their students. And the truth is, we were never meant to be centered in these institutions. These systems are doing exactly what they were built to do, to uphold empire, to silence dissent, and to protect power. Thank you. So what do we do now? We build anyway. We build our communities anyway. We don't need their approval to teach our children about our people. We don't need permission to speak our truth. And we're already doing that with the work in our homes, in our masjids, in our friend groups, in spaces like PAC. We're already doing that. And this is why community-based education, it's really reclaiming power. It's knowing that even in the absence of institutional support, we have everything within us to teach our children and to continue this going. And that's what we're going to do in our workshop today. So we're going to build from our values, family, culture, collective knowledge, together. Again, we already have what we need. Our communities hold deep knowledge, care, memory, and we just need a good way to organize it. Community-centered education doesn't start with a lesson plan. It starts with a value. It starts with your values. Our values around family, around care, around intergenerational love, around resistance are what keeps us alive and connected, even when institutions continue to fail us. So much of what we need is already here within us. It's in our language, our recipes, our heritage, our prayers, our humor, our grief. In the lullabies we sing to our children and in stories our grandparents tell us. This is not just about reclaiming knowledge. It's about honoring what we have already been passed down and making sure it continues for our children. That's how we sustain liberation for long term. It's not just through protests, but also through cultural and familiar practices that hold us down. So we often hear about what our communities lack, right? I want to flip that narrative around and think about what we already have. I want to start with a critical race theorist, Tara Yasso, and they introduced the idea of community cultural wealth to counter a deficit thinking. And I want us to really claim that for ourselves, especially today and for Palestine and for the diaspora. We hold linguistic wealth in our stories, the way we speak Arabic, the way we switch between dialects, our humor, our poetry. We hold it in familial wealth, in the stories that our tetas tell us, in our collective grief and joy, in the ways we show up for each other without being asked. We hold it in our resistance wealth, not just in protests. In protests are very important, but in our prayers, in our funding, in remembering and in teaching, and in simply just saying the word Palestine over and over again. We hold it in cultural wealth, our food, our embroidery, our tatreez, the holidays we observe, and the music we dance to. And we hold it in our navigational and spiritual wealth. So we know how to survive we know that how to survive systems that are not built for us. We know how to hold our faith and our people in Palestine, even when everything tells us not to believe this anymore, even when everyone's telling us that it would be easier to let this go. And this is the foundation of community-centered education. It's not scarcity, it's not waiting, but it's abundance. If you look around, and we're in the perfect spot for this, we have so much of what we need. How many Palestinian community centers are there in the US? Genuinely, we're in a place that exudes what community-centered education is based in. So just some more examples that we can look at: cooking as curriculum, storytelling, faith-based learning, art as resistance, conversations as curriculum, and community events. So when we talk about resistance through education, it's not just something far away or unattainable. It's right here. It's happening all the time. And now we have to build on it together in this room. We're looking at what grounds us. Love as the foundation, truth-telling as resistance, culture of memory as curriculum, community as our classroom, and liberation over reform. So we're not waiting for anyone to save us. We're going to build from these broken systems. And these principles remind us what we already have and how we can sustain it and pass it forward. You're going to choose your entry point today. Now that we've explored what community-centered education is, we're going to shift into building something together or separately. So everyone in this room is going to bring a different experience based on who you are. Maybe you're a parent, an artist, a student, a community organizer, a person of faith. You all have something to offer, especially to our community. So we're inviting you to break either solo or into small groups, depending on what you do, with something that feels aligned to your skill set, to your interests, to who you are. You'll see there's 6 group themes on the slides. These are just entry points for ideas. These are not your limits. So if you have an idea that doesn't fall into one of these, it's beautiful. You're going to make this your own. So I want to highlight one of the groups up here, and it's the policy and political transformation one. Many of us are navigating institutions that claim neutrality, but uphold their own power. So if you're interested in pushing back, whether that's a school board meeting, a workplace censorship, or city council, this is the group that you're going to be able to do that in. And the goal here is to come together, share ideas, and build on something that you can take back to our community. And you'll have prompts and tools to guide you, and we're going to walk around and support you doing this. So take a minute to look at the screen and think about what you want. Do people have pen and paper?
In your conference bag, but there's also the orange bucket.
I have markers. Thank you. So while you're waiting for this, and as you guys move into potential groups or working solo, we're going to help guide your discussion while we walk around for some tangible entry points. Again, this is not about solving anything or everything. It's really about it's about starting somewhere. It's about walking out of here with an action plan that you are committing to. So you're going to use these prompts to guide you, and the goal is to co-create a project that you can take back to our community. Here are a few prompts that you can talk about in your groups or think about solo. And yeah, your goal, again, is not to have everything perfect. It's to just start something today. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit more. And we're going to get you some paper at some point.